Hey guys, I'm Sai, and welcome to Ace Podcast Nation, the home of the Danny Batten Fight Show. This is episode number 29. You can find the show in video format at youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation. Please subscribe to the channel, that's the most direct way to support the channel and the show. And you can find the audio versions at all the usual places, including Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and lots of others. And of course on Ace Podcast Nation we have lots and lots of shows on different things, different sports, different subjects, lots of interesting guests. So if you check out our social media pages, which are in the description below, you will find out more information of some of the incredible guests and shows we've got coming over the next couple of weeks. So today we have, for the first time in a while, no current UFC to discuss. However, we have lots of news to discuss, and this is the calm before the storm, because from next week we've got a couple of shows a week, and they are absolutely jam-packed with some incredible fights. So we've still got plenty to talk about, and it's going to be fun. So this is just a little calm hour, talking some retro UFC and some news before we get to the hectic week of madness. But joining me to talk it all, former Cage Warriors champion, UK MMA legend, Mr. Danny Batten. How are you, sir?
I'm really good, Si, and I hope everyone else out there is doing good. Yeah, sorry we haven't got a fresh show to do for this week, but yeah, it's nothing wrong with a bit of retro once in a while.
No, it was good fun, mate. We haven't watched them for a couple of weeks, so it was nice to get back into it.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we get into that, loads of news has dropped literally today, like in the hours before we recording this on the Sunday. So first and foremost, Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns is off for UFC 251, which is next Saturday. Which is it's an insane card, I gotta say. But that's a big blow because Gilbert Burns looked so impressive the other week. Really deserved his title shot. However, whilst it hasn't been confirmed by the UFC, ESPN is reporting it, and obviously they are UFC's exclusive partner for TV and everything. Ariel Hawani, who works for ESPN, says negotiations for a replacement fight of Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal for the welterweight title are done. Sources say both fighters have agreed to the terms, and it will go ahead on Fight Island at UFC 251. Now, number one, that's an incredible replacement fight. That is just going to be an absolute banger. Number two, if Jorge Masvidal somehow beats Usman on a week's notice, what a comeback from injury he will have had. He won the BMF title, which, whatever you think of that title, it was an incredible performance.
Sure.
And then he's got to fight Usman, who's no mug. How do you feel about the Burns fight being off and then the replacement?
I'm absolutely gutted, in one part, but if you're going to have an exciting, addition to step in, Masvidal is the man. He's going to make it exciting, isn't he? He's clearly, he must be in shape. He's not going to throw away this chance, trying to win it in the first round because he can't go on rounds. He'd be in it to win it in any of the rounds, I'm sure. Absolutely exciting. Like I say, if it was going to be anyone else stepping in, to have someone like him step in, that's just fantastic news.
Indeed, and there's been a few other little changes to these cards over the next couple of weeks. So Jack Shaw's had another change of opponent. His opponent's changed about 3 times in the last week. Which is unfortunate from a preparation point of view. But I'm just pleased that he's he's basically still got a fight, because there was obviously, once you start going through opponents, there's the risk that it just get called off. So basically, first of all, it was Anderson Dos Santos, but he tested positive for COVID-19 prior to the event. So that was the first change. The UFC event takes place, it's on the Qatar Dan Ige card, which is, I gotta say, we were just looking at the card before we started, which is for the same card that Modestas is fighting on. So Jack is now fighting, who was it? Aaron Phillips, which in my opinion is a harder fight for Jack Shaw than Anderson Dos Santos. Both very capable, both tough fighters, but it's certainly interesting. Obviously Jack Shaw's the the hot prospect, unbeaten since turning pro. It's going to be interesting, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. But I've got faith in Jack Shaw. He's beaten varied opponents of all different skill sets. He's ready. That unbeaten record, it can add strength to your personality for some people, and I think he's one such type character. So, yeah, I still got my money on him. I still think he can pull it off. I really do. This kid's creative on the day, and I think he'll come up with a way to win.
Well, funny enough, after we talk UFC 10, we're going to talk our next part in the look at the rise of Jack Shaw through Cage Warriors, which was requested by one of our viewers.
Good request, what I say.
Yeah, it was actually his longest fight to date at that point. And he finishes the fight, not to give it away, but he finishes the fight completely different to how he finished all his previous fights. And it goes a lot deeper. But he showed that he's more than capable from a striking point of view as well as a grappling point of view.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I felt like he did compete with more experience, but I think it was almost like he was just wanting to get rounds under his belt. I felt like he could have just switched it on, but he chose to feel out some rounds. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, I think part of that was because it was a short notice change again, which obviously you don't want to go rushing in just because you've got different opponents. You never know. Maybe if there's something, just something different or something you may have missed because you won't have had the same, preparation and stuff. And then also your fighter, who obviously you're not going to be joining me next Wednesday or next week.
Yes.
Next Sunday to talk UFC 251 because you will be at Fight Island with Modestas. Modestas' new opponent, he was facing Moreira. He's now facing Andreas Michailidis.
Michailidis or something like that. Yeah, bit of a hard one to say. Yeah, a much more well-rounded fighter. Good record, 12-3. He's just a very, very different fighter to the opponent he was facing. So obviously we prepped up his game for someone that's going to want to get it to the ground at some point. This guy could both stand and trade or take it to the ground, either or way really. But we've got a game plan. Modestas is well-rounded, so we're just thinking. Modestas naturally the bigger guy. This guy's fought a lot of middleweight. Has fought, I think, once recently as a light heavy. Modestas is a bigger man, and we're going to make sure that that's going to be a known fact at the end of the fight.
Yeah, and Modestas is on a 6-bout finishing streak. It is his UFC debut, but it's a special talent at the end of the day. So as I mentioned, Danny's away for the next show we do, which is probably going to be live Sunday evening, talking UFC 251. However, I will be joined by Mr. Richard Mearns, brother of Tom Mearns, Cage Warriors fighter, who joined me and Danny a couple of weeks back. And I'm also going to be joined by Canadian mixed martial arts journalist, Mr. James Lynch. For those of you who are really into your MMA, you'll probably be familiar with him. He's worked at various places from Fightful. Most recently, he's been working for The Score, which is a massive sports channel in Canada. He's a very, very talented journalist, podcaster. He's a very talented dude, very nice dude. And I'm very excited to have him on because he's real knowledgeable as well. And he loves MMA. So it's going to be cool to have two new faces talking UFC 251. But, okay. So I'll tell you what we're going to do, mate. Just because we've got a slightly different show today and the retro stuff, I don't want it to go on too long. So let's talk about UFC 251 because the card is ridiculous. So let's talk about that card for a bit, and I'll take you through some of these fights. So the main event of the prelim is Volkan Ozdemir versus Jiri Prochazka. Who you got for that one, and what do you think of Ozdemir? I'm assuming you're more familiar with Ozdemir.
Well, yeah, but I've not got a massive study on either of them. I think it's definitely a good matchup. That could sway either way. A little bit of a hard one to say who's going to come victorious in that one.
It is.
It's a good matchup though. I like it when. Absolutely.
There is one fight in the early prelims of the UFC 251 which I'm really looking forward to. Is Carla Rosa versus Vanessa Malo. We covered, I think we covered both of them actually in separate fights a few shows back, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. The women have been really performing well this year, so hopefully that continues. Going on to the main card. Oh my days! So you've got an opener of Amanda Rebus versus Paige Van Sant. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I'm going to go Paige for that one.
Yeah, she's improved massively over the last 18
young talent.
Months.
Yeah.
One that I'm really looking forward to is Jessica Andrade versus Rose Namajunas.
Yeah, crikey. I mean, who you got for that one?
I'm going to go with Rose. I think she's going to be on the
I think I'll match you on that one.
Won't be easy though, I gotta say.
No, it's another good matchup.
And then you've got this one, which I think people are sleeping on a little bit because of the standard of the rest of the card. But it's Petr Yan, ranked number 3, versus the number 11 ranked bantamweight Jose Aldo.
Yeah, I'm going to go Petr Yan. He's come onto the scene. He's a tenacious striker. And he's got great takedown defense as well. I just think he's just the new breed, the new blood. And unfortunately, Jose Aldo, to me, he is fading out. He's sort of like tripping around the weight divisions, trying to reinvent himself. But I just think his time has been, the legend, the great as he was. I just think his time has passed. But that said, he's still young enough and capable enough. We know it only takes the right shot to land at the right time, to turn things around. But I think it's a case of a little hope in for him. I just can't see him being Petr Yan at the minute. Petr Yan's on an absolute tear. He's been looking devastating.
Yeah, Petr Yan, younger, quicker, stronger, faster.
Yeah.
Jose Aldo. Tell you what, if Jose loses this fight, I would like to see him go against Jack Shaw. If he's going to stay at bantamweight and Jack wins his fight on Wednesday, I want to see Jose Aldo versus Jack Shaw.
Yeah. That would be great.
I know for a fact Jack wants that fight because he's a hero of his. Man. So
yeah. That would be awesome for the young lad to have a crack at someone like that.
Yeah, and if he beats him, he retires him. What a story, isn't it?
Yeah, what a story to have.
Alexander Volkanovski, the champion, featherweight title bout versus Max Holloway, the rematch. Will we see a better performance from Max Holloway? Yeah,
I do. I think the strategy that was put upon Holloway, it took Holloway too long to try to figure out a way around it, and he'd already dropped too many rounds. I think he'll have a strategy, and he's going to make his length, his range count this time. I think you're going to see a little bit more footwork. Well, this is what I would hope to see from Holloway. If Holloway does the same thing, he's going to have the same issue as before. I think you have to stay disengaged from this shorter body composition opponent and keep him on the outside. And I just think that's what he's going to do. This guy don't lose very often, and I don't think he's going to lose twice to the same guy. I just don't think it's going to happen. It's not like the same situation with Jose Aldo. Holloway's still well young. We've got to remember how young he still is. He's just now proper experience, and I think that will make him be able to come up with a training plan to come through and take it the second time around.
Yeah, the most impressive thing about Holloway over the last couple of years has been his output during fights. He's just unbelievable.
Incredible.
If you remember, when he fought Brian Ortega was on an absolute tear.
He was.
And Max Holloway, absolutely. Brian Ortega hasn't been the same since. He just destroyed him with just pure footwork and output.
Yeah, that's it.
And when it came to the Volkanovski fight, whether it was Volkanovski didn't allow him to implement that same game plan, or whether Max Holloway had a different game plan for that fight.
Volkanovski, he's got a very different body. He's opposite in body composition, but he also has the cardio to match Holloway. And I think he just kept getting on the inside and was just able to get his larger work rate off on Holloway. And Holloway just kept missing on the way back out. That's why I think this is going to be different. I think Holloway fell into a habit of brutalizing his opponents through that work ethic and that work rate, but he was unable to do it against Volkanovski. So I think this time around his output will be slightly less, but more hand-picked, and that's all going to be done behind the footwork. That's what I'm suspecting is going to happen.
Yes. And then we got was Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. However, that's been changed to a welterweight title match: Gilbert Burns versus Jorge Masvidal on a week's
Right,
notice.
yeah. If Masvidal is in shape, I just think he's got the tools to put it away. I take it it's still going to be over 5 rounds, right?
Yeah.
That's something I didn't check on, actually.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I just think 5 rounds with that kind of ferocious striking style that he's got, I just got a feeling he's going to end up tagging and going for the hunt for the finish. It all depends whether he's in shape. And it appears we've seen a few short notice fighters come in, and they appear to have come in pretty damn fit. So I take it that everyone's just hungry to get back in there, get back earning money, getting back fighting. And I think Masvidal will be one of those characters that would be, training hard on the sidelines, ready to step in, especially with all this COVID going on. There's so many potential pullouts. I think everyone's staying fit, waiting to jump in and get that healthy pay purse.
Yeah, and it's career changer for Masvidal. He'll get paid massive amount of money for stepping in last minute anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure.
If he takes
surely
that
they've
title,
got to subsidise.
If he takes that title,
Yeah.
that's that's game changer for him.
Because I know there's been a little bit of discussion, hasn't there, between him and Dana about pay, because Masvidal was on about not fighting anymore. I mean, that'd be absolutely devastating for fans anyway.
Yeah,
Masvidal's become well popular. He's a proper geezer that says things and backs them up. He doesn't overly talk the shit. Oh shit! I just swore.
Yeah,
was I allowed to swear? I just can't wait for this, man. That's going to be a good one.
Crazy.
That's going to be a good one. But we can't write Usman off. I mean, Usman he's come onto the scene and been pretty damn dominant. He really has. So if anyone could shut him down, he could. But I just think my money's on Masvidal. I've got a feeling he's just going to land something that's going to landslide it towards him getting the victory.
Yeah, it's going to be Usman's biggest test, that's for sure. And then very quickly, I'm just going to ask you about the British-based fighters, guys and girls for the Wednesday show, which you're going to be at. But obviously, so we got Modestas. I'm assuming you're going to go with Modestas for that one. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I feel well confident.
Then we got Molly McCann versus Talia Santos. Molly hasn't fought for a while, but her last performance was incredibly professional and impressive.
Yeah, Molly's going to take it. She's not going to be someone that gets rusty or anything like that. Her style's just not such will suffer that. She'll go in there, she'll just start grinding, and I think she'll be too much for her.
Yeah, I do too. John Phillips versus Dusko Todorovic.
Yeah. That's a little bit more of a challenge, but we got to go with it.
Got to go with the Welshman.
Yeah, but that's a tough one.
Yeah, definitely. And then you got obviously Jack Shaw versus Phillips.
Yeah, I'll go Jack
there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's much more of a test for him, but I think he's gonna take it. I'm sure he's prepared like he's never been prepared before, and what we've seen of him so far has been like an extra shiny diamond with his performances. I think he's just going to shine even more.
Yeah,
I really do.
I feel like he's destined for the very, very top of the game. I've got to be honest.
Yeah,
unless he gets like a serious injury, that's the only thing. Like I get behind Jack and Brett and John Phillips and these guys and the guys from BST like Torch, Tom. But I do feel like Jack and Modestas are like those kind of once in a lifetime top talents.
Yeah, there's something sparky about their style and about their personalities. I'm not talking personalities like Conor McGregor's or anything, but they're fighting personalities. The way they get in there and seem to perform without nerves. I mean, I take it they do suffer some nerves of some degree, but it doesn't hold them back on their performance at all. They don't seem to need to warm up. They just get in there and start performing from the get-go. It's utterly impressive.
Oh, yes. And just very quickly, because we'll talk about this the next time you're on the following show then, you've got Joe Duffy, the Irishman, facing Joel Alvarez. So I think that's going to be a very tough fight for Joe Duffy, but...
Yeah, it is. And I think, Duffy's just not looked comfortable in UFC. He's just had hard fights, difficult opponents. He has moments of looking good. Then he can just have a really bad round all of a sudden. I just feel like he hasn't got his groove. And I don't know the reason is why. I don't know whether there's issues in his training prep or whether he's just a bit star-struck with the whole UFC. And maybe puts himself under pressure for being the man that had beat Conor McGregor, back along. I don't know, but Duffy seems to be struggling a little bit.
And then Brett Johns versus Montel Jackson at Bantamweight after his impressive comeback.
Yeah, you got to go Brett Johns, honestly. I think you're just going to see increments of improvement every time he steps in there.
Yeah, and the thing with Brett is every time he's fought, he's looked better and better. He had that.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
one fight where he wasn't great just before he made his comeback recently, or fairly recently. But that, let's be fair, that last fight he had, he was very impressive against a guy who was a good wrestler.
He was.
And he was a bit thicker than what Brett is. And I thought Brett was really outstanding performance. So that was good to see. And Brett Johns has fought some massive names, and I think sometimes people forget that at a very, not a young age, but like early in his UFC career, he took Pedro Munez to a decision. He took Aljamain Sterling, who's now in the title picture, to a decision.
Yeah, that's it.
And there's a couple of others as well. It's people forget, who he was in the Tough Enough, and he's very, very tight. He beat Albert Morales on a decision, who's obviously, I think Morales is ranked, isn't he ranked number 2 or something?
One of the best, yeah, that's it. Yeah, he's not had an easy route at all.
No, and I think if he can get that momentum back that he had early on in his UFC run, he's very capable of doing exactly what we just said about Modestas.
Yeah, I absolutely think the same.
I think he's got a very different personality. He's a bit quiet. Like Jack's very quiet, but when Jack goes in the cage, he looks aggressive, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Whereas I think Brett's
takes it
a little bit more of a counter fighter, but Brett has got those skills to really, he can do some real damage in the grappling, and I'd like to really see him push on now. But yeah, we'll go into that card obviously the next time you're on, but I wanted to cover the UFC 251 because it's such a big card, and you're not here to talk about it. But
fortunately.
Yeah, we're thinking you might miss 2 shows because we'll be doing a live show on the Thursday. Hopefully, if I can find someone to come in to replace you to talk about the Wednesday show, which you're going to be at. I just got to find someone. Failing that, if I can't get someone or it's a bit pushed and you're not going to be able to do it, we'll just have to cover the 2 shows on the Sunday. We
can do that. We can do a little mega show.
And I'd be interested to hear your your views on your experiences out there and whatnot. And hopefully you'll come back with some potential guests for us as well. You never know.
Yeah. I'm gonna see how many shoulders I can rub when I'm out there. Try and get some contacts.
Some old friendships.
Yeah, that's it.
That's my son. Right. UFC 10.
Yeah.
The tournament system was back, thank God. We opened up with Mark Hall versus Don Fry. Tell me what you got, mate. It doesn't have to be like massively.
Okay. So Mark Hall coming straight out. I mean, you normally wouldn't expect to have this kind of strategy against someone who's going to try to wrestle you to the ground and punch your head through the canvas, but he come out with a spinning kick, but he actually lands it. Even though it didn't look super fast, it seemed to knock Don Fry a little bit off balance.
Him a bit, didn't it?
Yeah, he didn't like it because Don Fry just closed in from the get-go there. But he picked him up body to body, slammed him down, got put into a form of guard. But clearly the guy's not efficient off his back. He's really struggling to control the impacts coming down from Don Fry. We know Don Fry's a ground and pounder and a wrestler type, right? That can strike somewhat too. And it's those body shots. You see the marks and the welts that were appearing on the body of Mark Hall. It's some of those shots when they're going in, they don't look that hard, but I think Don Fry's fists are like sledgehammers.
Well, we've talked, haven't we, about the body shots in the clinch, like standing up. But I think in these, particularly these older UFCs, where you see a lot of people in guard and people don't really know how to progress through the guard, and they also don't know how to defend other than put the guard on, you see a lot of shots to the ribs and body, and I think they don't look like they do that much damage, but particularly in this fight, you can see...
They looked like they were doing damage, all right. He was bleeding under the skin, and it didn't look a comfortable experience. And then the headbutts started coming.
10 minutes of it,
and,
mate, as well.
And some elbows, the poor guy was just being used as a punch bag on the ground. It was like Don Fry was just doing a training drill. He just couldn't get back up against that caliber of wrestler. And we've seen Don Fry do this, beforehand at previous UFC events, and also we know that he's done this to many people as he went on to Pride and stuff like that. But utterly impressive. He won. He was headbutting the guy. A really good victory for Don Fry. He done what Don Fry always does, it seems, at that stage.
Really went 10 minutes 21. Don Fry won via TKO punches. And by the way, I will say, because it's going to be an ongoing theme in this show, John McCarthy refereeing, and this was outstanding. Honestly, the standard of refereeing, considering how early in the game it is, and how they obviously in those early shows there was barely a referee at all. As soon as they brought John McCarthy in, he changed the whole outlook of how they looked at the very few rules they had, how they protected fighters. I really can't speak highly enough, because I know referees these days get a lot of criticism. I know John doesn't, but he was so good, and I hope one day, I really do hope one day that I get to interview him and pick his brains, because
if that's what you want, it'll happen. You just got to push for it, Si. It can happen. No reason why not. Nice guy as well. Met him a good few times. Super nice guy, and very clear. He always comes around and re-explains the rules for every person. He comes around to each of your training rooms, and Big John McCarthy. I understand why they call him big, because he's a big guy,
massive, isn't he?
Really big guy. Yeah,
he a black belt or something as well.
Maybe so. I don't know. I don't know about that. He certainly walks around confident, but I would if I was that big, with or without skills.
Okay, and then next up we had what was it? Brian Johnston defeated Scott Fielder in 2 minutes 25.
Although it didn't go on long, it was actually quite a lot what was going on. I think partly because of Brian Johnson's style. Cause I think Brian Johnson, he died a long time ago, didn't he? I'm sure he passed away, unfortunately. But this guy, comes out explosive. He really does. I think he's got some wrestling capabilities as well. But they go to the ground. But this Fielder, he's got some skills too. He ended up getting on the back of Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson was being a bit overcommitted.
2001, he died of a stroke.
Age 32. I mean, that's just
three
tragic.
weeks after getting married.
Yeah, tragic. I know it was a long time ago, but utterly sad that. 32.
Sorry to interrupt you, mate.
No, that's fine. But Fielder, he was there to fight because he had a funky hairstyle, didn't he? Sort of like got it all shaved off at the front and then all ponytailed at the back, so he looked like a bit of a mad character. But he had skills about him. He had Brian Johnson's back, and it looked like he was trying to attempt like an inverted upside down arm triangle almost. But he slipped off, and Brian Johnson, with all that energy he seems to have, he just started putting the beat down on him. And it wasn't long after he fell off his back, it all went pear-shaped for him, and it gets stopped. But I was impressive with Fielder. He showed some ground skills there. He had hooks in, he was looking for chokes and getting some ground and pound off. But the aggression of Brian Johnson, once he had a chance to be on top of himself, was all action. And
Brian Johnson, kickboxer predominantly, but he's a decent grappler, Golden Gloves champion, striker on the ground. Got a bit of bare knuckle experience. But when he came in, he had his gi on, or top half of his gi, and he just looked angry, and he had his head down, and he was frowning. He came to fight, and it was good. Entertaining couple of minutes, I thought. It was really good.
It was. I enjoyed it.
But John McCarthy's massive. Just looking at him again.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
He's a big boy. So Brian Johnson defeated Scott Fielder by a submission punches, 2 minutes 25. Next up was Mark Coleman versus Motti Hornstein in 2 minutes 43.
Motti Hornstein, really decorated striker. Numerous karate championships that he's won. So he's a pretty decorated martial artist. But going against someone like Mark Coleman, was one of the top wrestlers at the time, or he'd come away, come into UFC after having a very decorated, wrestling background. You're going to struggle. It's going to go to ground very, very quickly, and that's exactly what we saw. On paper, it looks like Hornstein, could come and match him. He's quite a big guy, 6'2", and someone stated on there it looked like a big version of Van Damme, and I absolutely got to agree. He really did look like him, but he got taken down so quickly, and just in that guard, he was just getting pounded. It just didn't last long. At one point, he was trying almost like a half-guard knee shield, but I don't think he even knew what he was actually doing there.
Didn't know what he was trying.
He sort of done it out of instinct to try to keep Mark Coleman off, but Mark Coleman is just a bigger version of Dom Fry. Don't think he's as good a striker as Dom Fry, but his wrestling capabilities and his size was just all too much for someone like Hornstein.
Yeah, I felt like Mark Coleman came in with a bit of something to prove, because wrestlers predominantly in these first 10 or first 12 UFC shows hadn't done very well. The wrestlers had generally struggled. And I felt like he came in with something to prove, and he was one of the best wrestlers in the country at the time. And he was impressive, I've got to say.
I think, Dan Severn had done well. He was predominantly a wrestler, but I don't think he was as decorated as Mark Coleman was. But
no, Mark Coleman was the real deal, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Not that Dan Severn wasn't, but like...
Mark Coleman was the king of ground and pound.
Do you know who he reminds me of? The way he was moving when he was on top of him, and he was like moving positions really quick.
Yeah.
He reminded me of Brock Lesnar. The way massive guy, but just the way how quick he was able to change positions on top of his opponent without losing control.
Yeah, he was fast twitch. You can tell he's just got wrestling just built into his blood.
Big, huge hammer fists as well.
Yeah, every little move he had a move to counter it with his wrestling, and would just use his hands as sledgehammers. To me, he really reminded me of Mark Kerr. Back when Mark Kerr was at his peak. Very, very similar sort of style. He looks to get the job done. His work ethic is he's grinding all the time. Yeah, he practically gasses himself trying to be aggressive, but that makes for great viewing. And I've always enjoyed just watching these fights. I mean, they were never pretty from a martial arts perspective, but he certainly gets the job done.
A bit all over the place, but
as complete martial artists, they definitely wasn't at this point. But wrestling and being that size, throwing punches down to someone's head is not over technical back then. And he did a good job of his wrestling.
One of the things which made me giggle actually is when he was at the mount, instead of going these days, you see like short hammer fists done you to basically get as many in as you can so the ref stops it. But he was giving it like haymaker hammer fist, literally like he was throwing a hammer down. And it just made me giggle a bit at the time when I watched it.
He meant every shot.
Yeah, it was brutal. The final bout of the quarterfinals was Big Daddy Gary Goodridge back for another run. He faced John Campatella. This one only lasted a minute and a half, with Big Daddy taking the win.
Yes, he did. But that John, he come out and he looked strong. He looked to put Gary Goodridge under a little bit of bit of pressure.
Sorry, I interrupted you again, mate. I just reminded me, and I'll forget. When there was a point where Gary Goodridge was against the cage, like facing away from his opponent, and what's his name? John Campatella. He hits him with like a right hook from behind and hits him on the back of the ear, and you can visibly see that it really pisses off Gary Goodridge, and he kind of swings an elbow behind him. And he gets really irritated by it.
He was not happy about it. I don't think he knew that one was coming, so I think it rattled the old brain cells a bit.
He's not used to having them, is he?
No, it's not.
But he doesn't like. But God, one thing you say about Gary Goodridge is, for all his skills and size and strength, he doesn't like getting hit. And it's a reoccurring theme is when he gets hit clean, he does lose it a bit. Whether he loses it technically or he gets frustrated or he just can't angle it.
He gets a bit flustered with it. But I was actually impressed from the small duration we saw, John. And I actually thought this was one of the ones that I thought could have gone on longer. I know you said the refereeing was overly good. I couldn't see why. There must have been something that happened that we perhaps couldn't see. But I was really surprised that he got stopped.
Just looking at it again there, he nails 4 clean shots while he's on his back.
Yeah.
And that when he hits the 4th one, the guy kind of moves the wrong direction,
Right.
almost as if he's disorientated. But I actually think he was trying to move to turn, so because he was on his back.
Just to try and avoid the strikes.
But I think, and he, looking at it, his one eye is completely closed as well, though. So
I mean,
from a referee point of view, that could have been it.
Yeah, I suppose you could argue it, but I was enjoying it, and I would like to have seen that gone on. But I did notice that the ref was definitely stopping fights a lot earlier because there are knockout rounds at the end of the day, and it's going to allow the fighters to be able to go on into the next round with some energy left. Because I think the previous UFCs have seen some really, really slow, dragged out, tired-looking performances, which is not good viewing. So I think this is part of the. Yeah, I think this is partly why some of these fights were stopped. When people were getting into some difficulty, and John McCarthy knows that their ground skills were not up to much. He was just saying, "Hey, look, you've taken a few hits here. Clearly, you're not going to get out. Let's stop this and save the guy who's winning some energy to perform in those later rounds, later bouts." But yeah. It was a good win. Gary Goodridge tried one of his neck cranks as well, I observed. He tried to get him in a guillotine and then literally crank the neck. But I think that led to his takedown, actually, the way you got the scramble that led to the finish where John McCarthy stepped in. But, didn't get to see enough of that fight for me personally. No. But nevertheless, I think the better of the two fighters went through. I think Gary Goodridge would have won through eventually anyhow. Good win by Gary.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on, mate, about the how can I say, just the general standard of the fights. The way they were these ones were going, they weren't the boring sort of slow grappling. Everyone was looking for those finishes when they were on top, and everyone was scrambling to get away when they were underneath. Which presents, with a good thing.
Yeah, and if you think back at Hoist dominating the early ones, I think it had outgrown the abilities of Hoist. Not the abilities in terms of skill, because he had the skill to do it, but he didn't have the size. Going up against the Mark Colemans and the Don Fries, I think it would have been just a step too much for him.
Yeah, and I think when you come up against guys like that, no matter how good you are with, and Hoist, best in the world for what he was good at. These guys, when they were on top, even if he was able to get some sort of submission, they were so big and strong that they would have pummeled him, and it's then whether he can take it. And historically, we've seen that maybe, not many people can.
Hoist would not be stopped. It'd be the referee stepping in. Hoist will carry on till he's knocked out. If he's in a submission, he'll let it break.
Stand in because you're getting pummeled.
Yeah, but I think it would have been too much for him at this stage. The athletes were big, conditioned, and aware enough now of the submissions. A world-class wrestler at that sort of size, the sort of Colemans and the Don Fries of the world, were savvy enough to float any of those types of submission from that size of fighter.
100%, mate. Next up, we had the semi-finals. The first semi-final was Don Fry versus Brian Johnston. I enjoyed this one.
I enjoyed this one as well. Johnson just impressed me with his knees, looked really sharp with his knees, and he had some defence capabilities against Don Fry's wrestling, forcing Don Fry to have to exchange as well. Don Fry had his little successes as well with his knees and some of his strikes, but it always looked like Brian Johnson was more potentially dangerous in the striking. Eventually does get Johnson to the ground, and from there, he starts sticking it on him. And I just think the explosivity of Brian Johnson ended up getting me really, really tired. He got into an even more vulnerable position. And I just felt that he felt, hey, you know what? I'm not going to get back up out of this. No. It's been a good night. I've had my wins. Let's just call it a day. And he taps the mat. Yeah, he had his fun in there, but he knew it was only going to go one way. He did really fight explosively, and I think when you're doing knockout rounds, that's kind of the way you have to do it. You have to try and put the fighter away as early as you can to carry through the energy for the next round. And I think he thought, I'm going to be in a war here. Even if I pull through this, I'm not going to have nothing left for the next fight. So he taps the mat. Kind of a bit gutted because there's another one that I was really enjoying. I felt that he gave Don Fry some of the bigger issues that he had faced up until that point. He had been so dominant. Good fight. I enjoyed it. Yeah, but Don Fry went through again.
And he looked dominant. He looked, he did look dominant, and he looked good.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens later. But I agree with you. I really, really enjoyed the fight. I was just kind of getting into it, but it's easy for me to kind of stand here and say, "Oh yeah, he gave up too easy." But when you're getting pummeled with sledgehammers by Don Fry, it's a different kind of kettle of fish, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
It's not as easy as me just going, "Oh yeah, well, why didn't he just keep going? What's the matter with him?"
Yeah, you've got to remember as well. It was like it was thought as like a real fight back then. So all the nerves going in. That's exhausting. It's exhausting in itself, and it'd already been there. So, I can imagine once he got a little bit tired, again, all that nervous energy would have just drained him as well. There's no wonder why he just thought, what, I've done as far as I can get. Let's just live to survive another day.
Yeah, and I don't think they in those days they knew or they weren't as familiar with the sports kind of science side of it.
Yeah.
So you had that adrenaline spike, and that maybe they weren't as familiar with it and stuff. If you get
because he almost, although I sort of described him as being fearless, but by the same token, you could also argue that he fought with that fear intensity about him, sort of thing. When he corner a dog. It'll fight back. He was almost like he was doing that, so he's clearly getting big adrenaline dumps. And once that wore off, being that he's already competed that day, I think that's why you saw him just tap out the way he did. I just think he'd hit the wall all of a sudden.
Yes.
But up until then, he gave great entertainment. He really did. I really liked those knees he threw.
So Don Fry won via submission elbows, 4 minutes 37 versus Brian Johnston. Next semi-final was Mark Coleman versus Big Daddy Goodridge in the next semi-final, and Big Daddy did not like getting hit.
No, he did not. Mark Coleman was footworking away a little bit. It looked like he was respecting the size of Gary Goodridge somewhat, was sizing him up. So he sort of backed off, then shot in. And when he got that deep double, it looked like Gary Goodridge was going to resist it, but he started driving up and into him, and Gary Goodridge started to go for that neck crank. I think that's what put him on his back more than anything. I actually think he could have stuffed that first initial shoot, but he sort of tucked underneath his arm, looked like he was going to try and sit back for that neck crank. It puts him on his back, and he starts eating up some of that ground and pound. And from that ground and pound, started stretching up his closed guard. So kind of doing the right type of thing. Mark Coleman was trying to stack up and put his weight forward to try to smother any slick hips to scramble up. So it's kind of fixating Goodridge's position somewhat, but it's enabling him to stretch him away to get some reverse ground and pound, I suppose, if you want to call it that, and was striking back on Coleman. He gets an opportunity to scramble back up to the feet, but it gets him in kind of difficulties because now he's got his back taken, where he's holding the fence. He started eating some nasty looking uppercuts. I mean, Mark Coleman can really generate some power in these stood clinching scenarios. And Goodridge just stood there and took it somewhat. He started clambering around the outside of the cage to try to get it over towards his corner to try to seek some advice on how to get out of this kind of hold that Mark Coleman had on him. He's literally having a discussion with him in the corner. Managed to get facing him, and I was thinking, it's going to be game on again. But without that wrestling knowledge, he just got his back taken again, standing, was in that situation yet again. It was looking really frustrating for him because he had momentarily got out looking like he was going to go to work and just got put in the situation yet again. But he did turn again. He had another moment to sort of try and shine back. And he did exactly the right thing, I think, that when they broke free, Mark Coleman was looking to try to get his energy back, and Gary Goodridge was stalking him down. I just wished he had started at least throwing a jab or trying to pepper some shots in, but he didn't. He stalked him, walked him back, but just didn't have no work rate there. And Mark Coleman was just conserving his energy and started throwing his own strikes at Gary Goodridge. I just think it was a good strategy closing in, but you got to close in and go to work, and he didn't. He got shot in again. He got put on his back again. And each time he got put down, he started receiving more and more damage. He's now in side control. Goes into a rear position, looking like he's going to choke him out, and receives more strikes. And I think it was referee stoppage. I can't remember.
They give it. It's officially marked down as exhaustion.
Oh right, I don't know whether the ref stepped in. It's a bit of a unclear one.
Daddy gave up.
Yeah, so I think Gary Goodridge could have made more of it because Mark Coleman was looking pretty spent after being so aggressive. And you've got to give it him to fight that way. You know, he puts everything in to finish the guy from the bell pretty much. But yeah, he stalked him down, didn't throw anything. And so it was a little bit frustrating for me. And Mark Coleman ended up throwing his own strikes, getting work rate off, shot in and got him down again. And from then, it was just game over really for Goodridge. Once you got a wrestler on your back as well as punching and threatening chokes, it's only going to go one way.
Oh yeah, it most certainly is. Mark Coleman was very, very impressive. I thought, I gotta say.
Yeah, he was.
Fun to watch. Nearly as fun as this final between Mark Coleman and Don Fry. Don Fry went in the heavy favourite versus the wrestler. Didn't go to plan for Mr. Fry.
Don, I think these guys are trained together extensively as well as wrestlers. So Don Fry probably knew exactly how good he was. He was giving away some poundage. I think was he giving away around about £30, something like that?
Yeah.
You know, £30 is starting to add up to be quite a bit of weight difference. And I think he was giving away some wrestling pedigree as well. I don't think he was as decorated as Mark Coleman. So it was always going to be a difficult affair to get it where Don Fry normally gets comfortable to win it. And the pattern of the fight was that Mark Coleman was always able to get Don Fry on his back rather than vice versa. And whenever they did get back to their feet where Don Fry had the superior striking, he had too much of the fight taken out of him playing on his back. Now, back then, a wrestler being put on their back, they didn't receive very well regards being struck. Now, Don Fry is tough as hell, but it took something out of his energy levels. And each time they got back to the feet, Mark Coleman was just out wrestling him. And I think it wasn't even down to just pure ability. I think it's the fact that even if they was equal to ability, he was just losing out to the heavier guy. And so for the first time, we see Don Fry on his back repeatedly. And he was getting more and more damaged, getting more and more tired looking. Although Mark Coleman was getting tired, Don Fry for me was getting more so tired. And it just wasn't going his way. But it was a great fight to watch because you saw some really good wrestling exchanges. There was a nice one where it looked like Don Fry was going to get on top. And, Mark Coleman just does a short shrug off, which is, all typical wrestling moves.
Yeah.
It was just outplaying him on every exchange. Don Fry did a couple of good things to scramble back up, doing typical wrestler things to get back up to the feet. Wrist wrestling to stop the exchanges as you try to get back to your feet. But again, he was put back on his back again. But Don Fry was utterly tough throughout. He didn't lose face with that performance. And you had a new kid on the block in the form of Mark Coleman. And Mark Coleman had a really good fight career. He was highly successful and had a comeback in Pride as well. And, had some remarkable matches in that as well as he went through his career.
Yes. Look, Don Fry, legend. It is what it is, doesn't it? He went on, he had an amazing career. He dominated many people. And I think he had been used to, he was unbeaten in the UFC going into this final. But he got basically had what he had been doing to people done to him in many ways.
Exactly that. Yeah, that's what I mean. We so often see Don Fry go into people striking with confidence because he knows that if they do clinch up, he's predominantly putting people down. So he could just go wailing forward, didn't have to worry about anyone trying to shoot in on him. But in this case, he did have to worry about someone shooting in on him because he was going to get you down, and it did. But like I say, he still performed well there. I mean, he was hitting some powerful shots, and Don Fry was just wanting to give it back. Never did he lay on his back
Yeah, for
and,
sure.
and receive without trying to fight back. And for that part of it, you can just see this guy's an absolute warrior. And I was a big fan of Don Fry back in his day when he was fighting really regular. Loved his pride fights as well. And for me, I don't look at him as a lesser guy from this performance. He's a fighter through and through. And it's nice. I mean, there was such gentlemen after the fight, and like I say, I think they was quite friendly. I think they're still good friends today. So to see them go in there, bash the crap out of each other like they did,
and then just
still be friends after. No doubt they were probably
That's what you
training a
want,
few
yeah.
weeks later as well. That's how it was done back then.
Yeah, it was cool. I enjoyed it
Yeah.
all round. I thought it was just generally nice to see. But
Yeah.
okay, so then we have to finish us off, as it were, The Rise of Jack Shaw, Part 6. And this was a different one. Different feel, different everything. He fought Cage Warriors 87. He fought Matteo Galabiati.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, to say the least.
Yeah. Jack Shaw in this one looked like he was either giving him respect because maybe he looked into his credentials.
Well, he was he was a week. He took his opponent was replaced a week before the fight.
Sure.
So he was not expecting to fight this guy.
Yeah. Maybe that played on him a little bit, or more to the point, it almost looked like he was wanting just to get some rounds under his belt.
Well, he said
because
that
he
in his
just didn't.
post-fight interview actually that he was glad to get some rounds in. Yeah, so which is
right. Yeah. But I just wondered whether he just wanted to come out and feel out a few rounds and see how he performed there. It wasn't a complete perfect performance by Jack Shaw, but still he's really in the early stages of his growth. It received a couple of leg kicks. That if this guy was a proper devastating striker, could have been consequential in some way. But Matteo, for me, looked a little wooden, flat-footed, a little stiff, but he certainly looked big. So whether that was what Jack Shaw was, being wary of, the fact that this guy was quite muscled, looked quite powerful, and maybe he was giving all due respect to his physical size. But there was a good strike, wasn't there? He landed a left-hand strike that momentarily dropped Matteo. And again, I put it down to Matteo's. Yeah, he did. He bounced straight back up. I think because he is quite a thick-set guy for that division. He received it pretty well. He bounced straight back up. But that woodenness and that flat-footedness, kind of makes him a bit of a sitting target to someone with some fluent strikes. And if you look at the way Jack Shaw strikes, he strikes really fluent and loose. And I'm not surprised that he found his hands to his chin, to be honest. So there was a shoot attempt by Matteo as well, but it was easily, stopped by Jack Shaw. I think you could see the intentions were that Matteo's going to want to get it to the ground at some point. I think he's got like a sambo and judo background.
He's got a very high-level grappling background.
Yeah, and maybe that's why we never saw Jack Shaw shoot in like we normally do and rush so much. So maybe it was a pure strategy standpoint that we see him at a much more mellow pace. But the pace started to pick up. So as we went into round 2, Jack Shaw actually started scoring his takedown. He caught him behind the knee and did a lovely takedown. And as Matteo began to fatigue, I started to notice that he become even more flat-footed. His hands started going a little bit more wayward.
Footwork.
Yeah, he's kind of like he's structured to what should be a structure regarding your guard, and your footwork started to fall apart somewhat as he began to fatigue. And Jack Shaw was beginning to figure him out. He's beginning to land more, started to look even more loose. He's starting to pick up the work rate to how we'd always known Jack Shaw in the previous fights that we've been watching together, and just started to take over really. And as we went into round 3, what was my notes here? Jack Shaw lost a really good right hand. Did he catch a kick as well? Did he try and catch a kick on this one?
He caught him with a head kick.
The left kick. I'm trying to understand my notes as I squiggle here.
Yeah, he caught him with a head kick. and then there was one point where he went for like a whizzer, and
an Uchimata attempt, wasn't it?
yeah, that's right.
It
And
went
Jack like
Uchimata.
just he did this. I wouldn't even know how to describe it with my fairly limited knowledge of like grappling and stuff. But the speed at which Jack Shaw reacted
Yeah,
and put Gary Beatty under pressure from his own
yeah,
attack, basically,
that's right. Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought it was very, very impressive. And again,
yeah,
showed just how dangerous he is from all positions, even
yeah,
at this
yeah,
young
yeah.
age, like
Yeah, but
inexperienced.
it was really good to see that Jack was blowing a little bit in there. Not saying fatigue by any stretch, but he was having to work over some rounds, and I can imagine Matia's quite a strong guy, and so whenever they did clinch up, which was explosive when they did, it was going to take something out of you in terms of energy.
Yeah, for sure.
But again, I was really impressed with Jack again. It was nice to see him actually go through some rounds and actually see what it looks like to see him pant and blow and sweat, because I don't think he's broke into a pant or blow or sweat in any of the previous
He
fights
hadn't
that
been
we've seen.
past, like, I
He
think the
he dusts them
longest
off.
fight was a couple of
Yeah,
minutes into the second round before this.
yeah. But what a finish! I mean, what a
Oh
great
my
finish.
word.
We hadn't really seen much of Jack striking, but when we did, he found Mateo's chin numerous times and then lands that beautiful knee,
Set
and
him
it
up
was
for it, didn't
really
he?
beautiful. Yeah, he did. The guy sort of reached down at his leg, he strips back his lead leg, and then brings that loaded knee, because when you strip back your lead leg like that, it becomes a potential knee strike thereafter. And he did. He just nailed it with such precision and good timing. Puts him straight on his ass, and yeah, he goes on to finish, and the ref steps in. It was brilliant. Really, really good finish. Really, really good performance. Like I say, it wasn't perfect, only for the sense that I felt like Jack's lead leg was a little bit too far in, a little bit too far forward, and was a potential target for some leg kicks, which Mateo did land a couple of them, but didn't really pick up on it and work at it even more. Which, if I was in Mateo's corner, I'd be trying to use that as a target, try and create some weakness. But Mateo didn't have the experience, know-how, or the cornerman with the experience and know-how to perhaps point that out to him to try and make a better fight of it. But I think even with that, Jack Shaw's skill set across the board would have been all too much for Mateo anyway. But yeah, another good, solid performance. You just see that Jack's just progressing, learning, and looking now more seasoned and more cautious, which is exactly what it should be. I mean, being a young, tenacious lad don't mean that you've got to go,
Yeah, balls
pedal
to the
down
wall
from the
straight
get-go
away,
every
do you?
single
Yeah.
time. Yeah, because you're going to come unstuck at some point.
Every
So it's
fight's
great to,
different, isn't it?
yeah, he fought at a different gear, and that's what also impressed me really, and the fact that he could, pick his shots and figure someone out with a little bit of patience. But the work rate picked up throughout, and he got that sprint finish.
Yeah, and what I liked about the finish was that he set him up for it. And that just because Gary knew that he was, he was down on the fights. He
Mm.
was going in. He shot in a couple of times just before,
Yeah,
and Jack sort of fought it off.
yeah.
So what
He
he did
started
is he
reading him.
waited for it, yeah, and he just waited for it. He caught him with that shot, and then as he came in, he just held
Yeah.
him with his left hand and caught
Yeah,
him
he's a quick
nicely with that
learner.
knee.
Jack Shaw, what he would lack in experience in its entirety there, what is that he's a quick learner on the job. And if you don't start figuring Jack Shaw out and coming with something new on him repeatedly, he's going to have more time to figure you out, and he'll come with the appropriate tools to put you away. And he's becoming a finisher, isn't he? Finisher with not only with submissions, which we're seeing, not only with ground and pound, what we're seeing, but also with the standing striking that we're seeing here. So he's showing that he's fully well-rounded, and this is why someone like that's fighting on the top shows today.
Yeah, indeed, indeed, indeed. Very special talent, and I'm
Yeah,
really enjoying like
and
going back and
still so
having a
young,
little look.
so
Yeah,
unbelievably young
I think he's only
to be
24
where he's
now,
at already.
and he does not look out of place. But
No,
we will see after the coronavirus outbreak and this
mm,
long kind of break waiting for fights. You just don't know how these fighters are gonna
mm,
react. And the thing is, as Modestas said in when he was a guest, not every fighter is blessed to have a full gym and a dad who's able to coach them for this lockdown period. So not
Yeah.
everybody has been able to train, like maybe Modestas and Jack as well. Obviously, Jack's dad is his kind of head trainer.
Yeah.
So, you know, they've been quite lucky. Obviously, in Modestas' case, he's got the gym as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be gonna be interesting, mate. It's gonna be
It certainly is going to be that.
interesting. But I'm looking forward to it. I enjoyed all doing the retro stuff. We haven't done it for a while, but
Yeah.
we'll see. We will see. I'm not going to see you now for a bit.
Yeah. But
So
don't worry, I shall be back.
yeah, hopefully come back with a load of wins for the British-based fighters. That would be nice.
I have no doubt that's going to happen.
I hope so. I really do.
Yeah.
Particularly, you know, the like Modestas, Jack, Brett. I
Yeah.
really want to see those guys put on a
Yeah,
performance, because
absolutely.
everyone's watching now. These Fight Island cards, everybody's watching because of there's nothing else combat sports wise on. So
Yeah.
if you can put in a good performance, now's the time to do it.
Yeah.
Really, really is.
I agree.
And you know, if Modestas puts on, you know, if he goes and knocks this guy out in a minute with some crazy flying spinning kick or whatever, you know, all these random mad stuff he does, it's you know, now it's a good stage to do it.
I don't know what you've seen of his opponent, but his opponent's got some funky kicks as well. He likes to do spinning kicks, and he's knocked people down and led to finishes. So this guy's a creative striker himself.
Could be in for
but for me,
there'll be 10 minutes of grappling then, mate.
Yeah, and the guy's a black belt in BJJ as well. So this guy's a well-rounded individual. I'd say he's a more dangerous opponent than his original opponent. Not take anything away from his previous opponent. I think Modesta's previous opponent was super dangerous on the ground. If he was going to get Modesta down, I don't think it would have been such a straightforward affair to just scramble back up to your feet without some danger of some kind of submission coming his way. But I just don't think he was going to be able to get Modesta there. And I think every second that ticked by on the feet was just going to be a second in hell for his opponent. The striking difference is huge. It's huge. And it would have become very apparent very, very quickly against that guy. But this new opponent, this guy can strike. This guy can clearly grapple, being a black belt in BJJ. Although, you know, MMA is different somewhat, which is what message we're trying to teach Modestas, and he's learning very, very well. You know, he's grappling with black belts all the time. And when it comes to sparring MMA, you know, not able to make that black belt count anymore. So clearly we're doing something right in his training. So we're utterly prepared for this guy. For me, the weakness for this guy is the fact that Modesta's naturally a much bigger man. This guy predominantly has fought at middleweight. He's coming up to light heavyweight. He has fought light heavyweight before, but he ain't fought with someone like Modesta's at heavyweight. So to me, you know, we're just going to run through this guy. He's just a bigger, stronger, better man all round, Modesta.
I cannot wait to hear your experience from Fight Island, but also, like I say, hopefully you'll be bringing back the full house of British-based fighters winning.
Yeah,
and
of course. I mean,
sorry, mate. I was going to say I got something exciting in the book, so I haven't told you about yet. But I can't say it on air yet.
Okay.
I just
remembered. Save it for after.
Reminded me talking about Fight Island. That might give it away, but I'll tell you now when we finish. But was there anything else you wanted to add, mate? So
just really, just about the whole experience thing. I mean, predominantly we're over there, obviously, to bring back the win. But on a personal note, and for young Modesta's experience in life, I mean, what a UFC to go to! Probably one of the most experienced field places to have it on Yas Island, on this fighter island. I'm sure it's going to be utterly immense. I mean, I'm trying to imagine what it's going to be like, but I'm sure as much as I try and imagine it, I'm not going to.
I don't think you'll be able to imagine it. You won't be able to imagine
think it up the way it's really going to be.
It's never been done before, have it? Like Fight Island in Dubai this time next week, mate.
Yeah, I'll be taking lots of pictures. I'll send them over to you if I can get access to Wi-Fi, which shouldn't be an issue out there, I'm sure. I will be filling you in as much as I can, and then you can, you know, forward on any of the
I can post them on the Danny Batten Fight Show Instagram as well.
That's right.
That'd be quite cool. Yeah, that'd be really cool. If you and Modestas can send some photos of and I can post them on the show's Instagram. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'll even allow you to have a picture of me in my bikini that I'll be wearing out there.
No, you're right, man. Thanks.
Don't sound like you don't want to see that.
Yeah, there we go. Right, guys, thank you for joining us. As we say, it was completely different, or an old school show, shall we say, because of the lack of current UFC. But there's a lot coming.
Yeah.
We've got some sensational guests. When this comes out on Wednesday, this past Monday, we had former Fulham striker, Premier League striker, Mr. Barry Hales join us for the Andy Campbell Football Show. We have an incredible guest for next Monday, former England international, and that's going to be cool. We have these UFC shows coming up. I have former England cricket captain Adam Hollyoak joining me for an episode of My Story. New episode of State of Play, our cricket series, with West Indian batsman Kieran Powell, my co-host, and many other shows and guests, including Unscripted and Uncensored with none other than Cage Warriors hot prospect Jordan Vucinic, which I'm recording on Tuesday evening. So get your questions in for Jordan quickly. Make them as random as possible. Subscribe, youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation. Follow us on social media. Follow the Danny Batten Fight Show on social media. Twitter and Instagram at Danny Batten FS. Send Danny messages of abuse if you wish. Danny, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, my friend.
So thank you again, and thanks everyone for listening.
And I'll see you in probably 2 shows' time.
Yeah.
Defending champion, welcome